The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Good evening and welcome to my State of Mind. I am Dan Yorke. Tonight we meet one of the real growing stars in the public service world. She is Maria Rivera, and she's the mayor-elect of Central Falls, the first female to be elected to that position. She's been on the city council for quite some time, and she takes over in transition from term-limited Mayor James DYSOM. They share a lot of the same thoughts about Central Falls, which has really pulled itself up by the bootstraps in a lot of ways on economic and a whole bunch of other levels. But of course, COVID is a big challenge, and we'll talk about that this evening. In the meantime, here was the 12 News coverage of her election victory this past November.
I was extremely shy, an introvert, wouldn't speak in public.
That was before Mayor-elect Maria Rivera took a leadership class, changing the course of her life. As a resident of Central Falls, she joined city council, served as city council president, and now will be mayor for the next 4 years.
As a Latina, a woman of color, I mirror what my community is, and this is what we need. We need more individuals, women like me, to use their voice, be that voice.
What's her plan? To start, it's COVID.
Our community has been a community that has been hit hard. It was actually the hardest community that's been hit with COVID, so that has to be one of my priorities.
Other goals top of mind: improving social and racial disparities, advocating for immigrants, plus safety and security, to name a few. And as we walked through Jinx Park, a staple here in Central Falls, Rivera tells me her campaign didn't just focus on door knocks. It was about continuing the work set out by Mayor James DYSOM.
Making sure that we continue fixing our roads, that we have a cleaner Central Falls, that we continue to empower businesses, that we continue to try to figure out how to bring visitors into our city and you know, make sure economic development is progressing in our city.
So if you didn't vote for her, that's okay.
This is about bringing the community back together. It's been completely divided.
Rivera says she's here to serve you.
Working with the Rhode Island Restore Grant and the Lieutenant Governor's Office and trying to figure out how we can make it an easier process.
And with that, the mayor-elect of Central Falls is with us, ready to get after the job. I wonder, as I do with many newly elected officials, Maria Rivera, why in heaven's name you'd want to do this in the middle of what we're dealing with. It's not going to be easy, but congratulations.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. I know, right? Call me crazy. No, you know, my community has put me here. This is not something that I had a vision for 5 years ago. And when I started working as a councilwoman and I started working more with the community kept asking me to run for this position. It was not an easy decision because I kept saying to myself, am I going to be ready? But I think you're never ready for these positions, right? You just need to continue doing the work. It's going to be a challenge with COVID, but I've been working with anything that has to do with COVID as of March, since this started. And I think I need to continue that work. You know, James has done an amazing job. We've done a lot of work around COVID as of March, but there's a lot of work that still needs to be done, especially because our numbers keep increasing and our families are at the higher risk in our city. So I just need to continue the work. I have a vision. You know, I'm having lots of conversations. I've talked to the governor. I've talked to Director Alexander Scott about what is it that I'm looking for the community, and it seems like we're on board. We have a team. This is not just about myself. This is about a team of leaders who will continue moving Central Falls forward.
I want to dig into that a little bit as we go, but let's start from the top. Your background prior to becoming the counselor and council president. Tell us about that.
So I've worked for the state of Rhode Island for the Department of Human Services. I actually just made 20 years of state service in October. So I tell everybody it's perfect timing, right? 20 years, I get to leave my job and start a new one. I was born in New Jersey, lived in Chicago for like 10 years, and been here for a little over 30 years. I've lived in Central Falls most of my life. I, raised my 2 kids here. I was involved with their school, the school here in Central Falls, for a while.
Okay, so obviously you're embedded in the community, and you had a pretty good relationship with the mayor during this tenure. Most folks, when they look at Central Falls, are pretty bullish on what James DYSOM was able to able to deliver. He's term limited. He learned a lot and matured as a young guy. Becoming the mayor there. What notes are you taking from him in general in terms of the direction of the city?
We need to stay humble. This is not about us. He took our city out of bankruptcy. This was a lot of work for him. I need to continue staying focused on what are the needs of the community, right? That's what he has focused on, and this is why he's moved our city forward so much. And I need to continue staying with that same focus of what it is that the community needs, listening to the community, what are the needs, and addressing those issues.
What does becoming the first female mayor of the city mean something to you?
So I have to tell you that a lot of people have reached out to me, and even before, winning the election, a lot of people reached out to me, just making a big deal about it. You're the first woman, you're the first Latina. It really didn't kick in until like the week before election, where I said to myself, this is a big deal because this is a door opener for many women. Like it's taken way too long for us to be in these positions to reach it, this goal. Now it means something to me because I know that I am empowering a lot of women and a lot of young girls.
Is it specific to the Latinx community that this is a different kind of message?
Absolutely. It's definitely a different type of message for them because I can tell you that I've been in situations that as a Latina, I would not get an opportunity because others they were just looking down on me, right? She's great at what she does, but I wasn't good enough to get a different position. And I can tell you that if I wasn't a Latina, I would be in that position because I would see the transitions of how other women would get into the positions. And I would have the qualifications to be able to do the work. But I know for a fact that because I am a Latina, I was not considered.
Well, hopefully we're moving past, one day at a time. With every accomplishment, we're moving past that dynamic. You're a man or a woman, Latina or a white Irish guy like me, COVID doesn't matter, right? COVID doesn't care. And when we get back from the next segment, we're going to talk about how Central Falls is digging in and, why thinking you may want to be the mayor of the city and all of a sudden now leading anything on a public basis has changed with this virus. We'll be right back with Maria Rivera. She is the mayor-elect in Central Falls on My State of Mind. Stay tuned. Go back to My State of Mind. Mayor-elect Maria Rivera is with me. She is newly elected in Central Falls, the first woman to be elected to that position. Look, I have pre-COVID talked about Central Falls as a city on the verge of greatness, or it could fall back in dramatic fashion. I really feel like it has been on the cusp of becoming something that would be a cultural source of excitement and pride for the state, or a place that could be long forgotten. And we'll talk about that in the next segment. Those conversations that I remember having within the last couple of years, even with James DYSOM, the outgoing mayor, because of his term limit, seem to be far away, Maria. They seem to be far, because right now we're in such a triage situation with COVID and the like, and living closely together is a liability with this virus. Concentrated environments, urban environments. We already had an admission not too early on, but finally in the later spring, that the administration did not do a good enough job in terms of outreach on the COVID virus to really make the case. And I think Central Falls has been chasing its tail ever since with this outbreak. How do you see, stepping into this job amidst this pandemic, and Central Falls' particular challenge with it?
I'm glad that I started working with this from the beginning. Before, when they were doing the press conferences, I started translating them via Facebook for our community, which was extremely important because a lot of our residents don't speak English. And they would wait for me to host these lives to give them all the updated information that was being spoken at by the governor. It's a challenge. It's been a challenge. It's going to continue to be a challenge because the numbers continue increasing. But I am committed to this community and making sure that I fight for whatever resources we need here and educating them about the importance of what is COVID, why they need to stay home, why they need to isolate. You know, we fought for a testing site. We got a testing site. It was taken back to Pawtucket. We got another testing site now that I've been working on. Because our numbers keep increasing, there's more work that needs to be done. We live in a high dense community. There are 2 and 3 families that live in one apartment. If one has to go to work and test positive, how do we isolate the rest of those families? If we have a mom who is a single mom of 3 kids and they're minors and she tests positive, like, how are we going to help her? So these are conversations that we've been having, but I now want to have something more, you know, that we can get to them, because a lot of them, because they're also undocumented, are afraid. They don't want to give information. They don't want to leave their house. So I want to make sure that now that we have this testing site, that we have all of the resources that we need before they leave, when they go get tested, to be able to give them that information, for them to know exactly what is it that they have to do, you know, either calling 211 if they need food, if they need, you know, toiletries for their home, whatever they need, so that we have it available to them so that they don't have to leave their house and continue spreading the virus.
Well, how are you handling that? I mean, obviously, you just explained some of the resources that you're trying to bring to them, but, you know, what is the solution for the examples of people that you're talking about who have to go home to you know, an apartment or a smaller house or a multifamily house with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people, you know, in the same dwelling area? Are you moving those who test positive to other facilities, other locations? You know, what is the juggle?
So we can't make them leave their house, right? If they have 3 minor children and no one can babysit their kids, they have to be home with their kids. So it's, you know, making sure that we explain to them how important it is for them to continue using their mask, not only the person who tested positive, but their kids. Continue washing your hands and stay away from them as much as you can. Like, I understand you need to feed them, and if they're babies, you need to bathe them, but use 2 masks, do whatever you have to do to protect yourself from each other. And then the ones that can isolate, then they, you know, we can tell them you can go isolate. They can call the Department of Health and they'll be put in a hotel or wherever they can isolate. Or if they live in a home where they have 3 bedrooms and there are other adults, stay in your room. You should not be leaving your bedroom.
Right. The infection rate in Central Falls was, you know, Central Falls didn't make the cut originally when the school openings were announced, at least the full green light and all of that, all that formulaic stuff. You know, where do we stand right now?
You know, there are 3 schools that are doing distance learning. The other ones are not distance learning. This is a challenge, right? How do we expect a single mom that has to go to work to stay home with her kids because they are home distance learning? Who's going to pay her bills? So it's a tough situation, and there really is no funding, especially if it's an undocumented family. There really is no funding. If it's not an undocumented family that can apply for cash assistance through the state, that is not enough for them to sustain their expenses in their house.
The conundrum has been difficult. The governor and the commissioner understandably wanted to push for, you know, open schools in this, you know, in this return, and in part because of that reason. Also, we all know that kids are much better in school than not in school. But what we've had here is, I think, a little lack of foresight about what the virus kickback would provide as a challenge, and that is having enough adults in the school. I mean, when the virus affects a teacher or teachers or even students, the numbers of quarantined teachers are so significant that schools can't sustain the in-school learning. I thought Pawtucket did it right when they said, you know what, we're just gonna sit tight and do mostly distance learning for the first for the first year. If the state had taken a look at that and said, you know what, we're going to find a funding formula to keep that single mom at home. We're going to subsidize that single mom. We're going to think through this thing, and we're going to do that. Mm-hmm. Make distance learning a better lousy alternative. maybe that would have helped. But right now we're in a rock and a hard place. There are no easy answers.
There are no easy answers. Everything right now is a challenge. So as leaders, we need to do what we have to do on our end to continue helping our families in our cities.
Yeah. It's just going to be a mess when we take when we figure out how we've done for our children. But you know, COVID is unique, no doubt.
Yeah.
When we're back, I want to talk about the city of Sioux Falls and your vision for it outside the virus, because there's going to be a day when we're normal again, right? We'll be right back with the new mayor to be in Central Falls. Stay with us. Live here, well, semi-live, as we say in the business, with nothing's live in Dan Yorke Zoom world, but this program actually was recorded on Wednesday morning as you're watching it on Thursday. Maria Rivera is the mayor-elect in Central Falls, and I could talk to her all day about the challenges that she's going to face. Well, she does face as the city council president, and now as the new mayor, replacing James DYSOM. But there will be a day, Maria, when you can start to think about the other things. In fact, if you forget the other things, you're going to lose traction. Central Falls, I think, has made some great strides. I often talk to James DYSOM about Central Falls opportunities, that it could be, Little Italy. It could be, Chinatown. It could be all those things. There are a lot of biases that we've got to shed ourselves from when it comes to the relationship with the Hispanic community in this state. But I've always felt like that your major investment away from being something that no longer suffers the wrath of ridicule from Rhode Islanders, which has all too long, I think, been part of the state culture reacting to Central Falls. Your thought on that?
That is no longer, and it's great. I love the fact that people want to come into our city and enjoy our city now, right? James has done an amazing job. I have some big shoes to fill because of the work that he has done, taking our city out of bankruptcy. Our streets are much cleaner. We have better streets. We have so many more businesses in our city. Our sidewalks are all done, like Broad Street and Dexter Street. We have, yesterday we lit up the biggest tree probably in the state at the landing, which is going to be a great area for visitors to come into our city. I'm going to have a lot of work. There's a lot of things I want to do. Right now, the focus is COVID, but education is one of my priorities for years. We've continued to fail our kids. I include myself as one of those who've continued to fail our kids because none of us have really taken it upon ourselves to address the issues that are happening. And it's time that we all come together, because this is not the job, the state has control of our school district. This is not the job of the state of RIDE. This is not the job of the board. This is not the job of the teachers, not the job of the elected officials, the parents, the students. We all need to come together and find out what is the problem.
Well, the vision for the city aside, I agree that Falls has made a major move. I still think it has an opportunity to really be a destination spot. So I don't think that work is yet to be manifested, and I think it's going to be a while before it becomes that kind of a level of place. But when we get to the schools, do you want to see the school system come back to Central Falls and not be state controlled?
I can't answer that yet. I need to see what's going to happen in the next few years with the work that we're going to do with the education in the city. In an ideal world, we would have the school district in our city and we would control it. But there's work that needs to be done regarding, the city. My vision is for us to continue putting Central Falls on the map. And it's going to be a city where people are going to want to continue visiting because of the work that has been done and the work that I want to continue doing in our city. Like this to me, this is an attraction. People are going to want to come here and enjoy our city.
Yeah, I just think it's going to require, not unlike what Pawtucket finally has received. Of course, we hope that project, at the landing is going to, the soccer stadium, everything else is going to kick off. I mean, very much the relationship that Central Falls has developed with Pawtucket as a neighbor, and even to the north, Cumberland and Lincoln and those places. I mean, you're going to need regional economic support for Central Falls to be able to break out, right?
Yes. And with the train station coming, that's going to be the start of many great things here.
For those who haven't been to Central Falls in a while, you need to know it is going to be one of the hip places to live. It really is, and not unlike places like Hoboken, New Jersey, where 30 years ago you wouldn't go to Hoboken if somebody paid you. Now it's the place that everybody wants to commute into the city from. Then again, COVID has destroyed that formula as well, so I'm not exactly sure how that all works, but. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things to look forward to. Give me a minute here, just summarize what you think day one is going to be like as we wrap up our first conversation.
So I'll say this for the first time. I want to get sworn in at midnight so that I can go to work at 8:30. I have been at City Hall since the Monday after election, making sure that I speak with the department heads, that I speak with some of the staff, and that we, my team, I have a transition team that has helped me tremendously, that we know what we're going into in January. Again, this is not about Maria. This is about a team of people that are going to go in there and do great work for our city. I need to make sure that January 4th, I'm there at 8:30 in the morning to start working.
You want to do that?
Sorry? I'm sorry.
Not kidding. You want to be born in at midnight symbolically and just.
I'm not kidding. I will have the probate judge swear me in at 12:01 so that I can go to work at 8:30.
That's tackling the job. Congratulations and best of luck to you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for joining us. We'll be right back on that State of Mind. Stay with us. That Mayor-elect Rivera will become mayor at midnight and go to work at 8:30 is practical because she sees this as a job that cannot wait. Symbolic for those in public service who will recognize that it's not all about them. It's about the job. We'll talk to you on the radio at 3 until 6 tomorrow on WPRO and back here tomorrow night. Thanks for tuning in.